A chance encounter at the auction house changed everything for Amelia Lambert. She'd spent 3 years meticulously planning the acquisition of Horizon Technologies, the software development company that held the patent to her late father's most brilliant innovation. As she entered the room, elegant in her navy blue suit, but with anxiety coursing through her veins, she had no idea that the mysterious competitor who kept outbidding her was sitting just 2 rows ahead, the notoriously private billionaire Blake Iverson, who found himself inexplicably drawn to the determined woman fighting so passionately against his financial machine. Amelia clutched her leather portfolio tighter as she settled into her seat. The auction for Horizon Technologies would begin in 20 minutes, and she needed every second to review her strategy. She'd liquidated her savings, secured loans, and convinced several angel investors to back her. This was her one shot to reclaim what rightfully belonged to her family: coffee. A deep voice interrupted her concentration. Amelia looked up to find a tall man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit holding 2 paper cups. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and his blue eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "I noticed you reviewing those financials pretty intensely. Thought you might need caffeine reinforcements," he said. "Thank you, but I'm fine," Amelia replied, returning to her papers. "First auction?" He asked, undeterred. Amelia sighed. "Look, I appreciate the gesture, but I really need to focus." "Of course," he nodded respectfully. "Good luck today." He walked away, taking both coffees with him. Amelia watched him leave, feeling slightly guilty for her abruptness. But sentiment was a luxury she couldn't afford today. She returned to her notes, reviewing the maximum bid she could stretch to $12.4 million. It was everything she had and everything she could borrow. The auction began promptly at 10 a.m. Horizon Technologies was the third lot of the day. When it finally came up, Amelia's heart pounded so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. "We'll start the bidding for Horizon Technologies at $5 million, the auctioneer announced. Amelia raised her paddle immediately. $5 million from paddle number 23. A paddle rose several rows ahead of her. $6 million from paddle number 17, Amelia countered. $7 million. The bids escalated quickly. At $11 million, most bidders had dropped out. It was down to just Amelia and paddle 17, the man who had offered her coffee. $11.5 million, the auctioneer called as paddle 17 rose again. Amelia hesitated, then raised her paddle. $12 million. The man turned slightly, catching her eye for a brief moment before raising his paddle again. $12.5 million. Amelia's stomach dropped. That was above her maximum. She had nothing left to give. $12.5 million going once. She stared at her financial projections, desperately looking for any additional funds she might access. Going twice. There was nothing. Sold to paddle 17 for $12.5 million. Amelia sat frozen as the auction moved on to the next lot. She'd failed. 3 years of work, all the money she had in the world, and she'd failed. She gathered her papers with trembling hands and made her way out of the auction house, needing air. Outside, she leaned against the stone facade, taking deep breaths to hold back tears. "Miss Lambert," she turned to find the coffee man paddle 17 standing there. "How do you know my name?" She asked. "Blake Iverson," he said, extending his hand. "And I make it my business to know who I'm bidding against." Amelia stared at his hand without taking it. "Blake Iverson of Iverson Industries." "The same," he smiled, lowering his hand when she didn't shake it. "Congratulations on your purchase," she said coldly. "I'm sure Horizon will make a fine addition to your collection of companies." "Actually, I'm curious why you were so determined to acquire it," he said. "It's a relatively small tech company with some interesting patents, but nothing that would normally attract this kind of bidding war." Amelia looked at him directly. "Those patents include my father's work that Horizon's previous owner stole from him before he died." "I was trying to get it back." Blake's expression changed. "Robert Lambert was your father." Amelia's eyes widened. "You knew him." "I knew of his work. He was brilliant." Blake paused. "Would you join me for lunch? I'd like to hear more about this." "Why would I do that?" "Because I think we might be able to work something out that benefits us both." Amelia hesitated. She had nothing to lose now. Fine, but I choose the place. An hour later, they sat across from each other at a small cafe several blocks from the auction house. Amelia had chosen it specifically because it was affordable and public. She had no interest in being wined and dined by a billionaire who had just crushed her dreams. Your father created the adaptive learning algorithm that became Horizon's main product, correct? Blake asked after they'd ordered. Yes. He spent 5 years developing it, but when he tried to patent it, he discovered that Vernon Mills had already filed a patent using my father's research. Dad had consulted for Mills's company before starting his own, and Mills stole his work. Amelia's voice tightened. The legal battle drained my father's resources. He died of a heart attack before it was resolved. Blake nodded thoughtfully. I remember reading about that case. The court sided with Mills on a technicality. The technicality being that my father couldn't afford to continue fighting after Mills's lawyers buried him in motions and delays. Amelia took a sip of water. Mills sold Horizon last year. I've spent every moment since then figuring out how to buy it, and now I own it. Blake's expression was unreadable. Yes, congratulations again. Their food arrived and they ate in silence for a few minutes before Blake spoke again. I have a proposal for you. Amelia looked up warily. I bought Horizon because its adaptive learning technology complements some of my other holdings, but I need someone who understands it to lead its integration and future development. Blake set down his fork. I'd like to offer you a job. Amelia laughed without humor. You want me to work for the company that stole my father's life's work. I want you to help me correct that historical wrong, Blake countered. As the new owner, I can acknowledge your father's contribution. We can rename the algorithm, credit him properly in all future applications. Amelia studied his face, looking for signs of deception. Why would you do that? Because it's the right thing to do, and because I need your expertise. Blake leaned forward. The position comes with a substantial equity stake. How substantial? 20% to start, with the opportunity to earn up to 49% based on performance. Amelia nearly choked on her water. That's unexpected. I'm not interested in perpetuating Vernon Mills's theft. I want to build something better. Blake's blue eyes held hers. Will you help me? Amelia considered his offer. It wasn't ownership, but it was more than she'd expected to salvage from this disaster, and perhaps with time she could increase her stake further. I'll need to see the details in writing, she said cautiously. Of course. I'll have my lawyers draw up the paperwork this afternoon. 2 weeks later, Amelia found herself in a corner office at Iverson Industries headquarters, reviewing the integration plan for Horizon Technologies. The offer Blake had presented was even better than he'd initially described, giving her considerable autonomy over Horizon's operations and a clear path to increasing her ownership stake. Blake knocked on her open door. How's it going? I'm making progress, Amelia replied, gesturing to the whiteboard covered in flowcharts and timelines. Your R&D team has some brilliant minds, so I've been told. Blake entered the office. Are you free for dinner tonight? I'd like to discuss the rebrand. Amelia hesitated. She'd been careful to keep their interactions strictly professional, despite finding herself increasingly drawn to Blake. He wasn't what she'd expected a billionaire CEO to be. He listened to her ideas, respected her expertise, and seemed genuinely committed to righting the wrong done to her father. Dinner would be fine, she said. Where were you thinking? My place, I'll cook. At her raised eyebrow, he added, it's easier to talk freely there, away from prying ears. Rebranding a major product line isn't something I want leaked to competitors. That night, Amelia arrived at Blake's penthouse apartment overlooking the city. She'd expected opulence, but was surprised by the comfortable, lived-in feel of the space. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the stunning view, but the furniture was chosen for comfort rather than show. You seem surprised, Blake commented as he handed her a glass of wine. I expected more. Amelia gestured vaguely, gold fixtures and marble statues. Blake laughed. Not my style. I spend too much time at the office to waste energy impressing myself at home. He led her to the kitchen where ingredients were laid out for pasta. Hope you like Italian. Love it, Amelia said, watching as he moved confidently around the kitchen. Where did you learn to cook, my mother? Blake replied, chopping garlic with practiced ease. She insisted that all three of her children learn basic life skills regardless of our family's wealth, said she wasn't raising helpless adults. Smart woman, she was. A shadow crossed his face. She passed away 5 years ago. I'm sorry, Amelia said softly. Thank you. Blake poured olive oil into a pan. Tell me about your family. Amelia perched on a bar stool at the kitchen island. It was just my dad and me after my mom left when I was 8. He raised me while building his company, taught me everything I know about software development. He did a good job, Blake said. I've been reviewing your work on the integration plan. Your insights are invaluable. The conversation flowed easily as Blake cooked, and by the time they sat down to eat, Amelia found herself relaxing in his company. After dinner, they moved to the living room with their wine glasses to discuss the rebrand. I've been thinking, Blake said, spreading documents on the coffee table. What if we call it the Lambert algorithm? Amelia stared at him. You'd name it after my father. It's his work. He deserves the recognition. Blake's expression was earnest, and it would make a powerful statement about Iverson Industries' commitment to ethical business practices. Tears welled in Amelia's eyes. That would mean everything to me. Then it's decided. Blake reached over and squeezed her hand briefly. The touch sent an unexpected warmth through Amelia. She pulled her hand away, confused by her reaction. I should go, she said, rising. It's getting late. Blake walked her to the door. Thank you for coming tonight. I enjoyed getting to know you better. Me too, Amelia admitted. As she rode the elevator down to the lobby, Amelia tried to make sense of her feelings. Blake Iverson was supposed to be the enemy, the billionaire who outbid her for her father's legacy. Instead, he was proving to be an ally and perhaps something more. Over the next month, Amelia threw herself into the Horizon integration project. She worked closely with Blake, often spending long evenings at the office planning the rollout of the newly named Lambert algorithm. The more time they spent together, the harder it became for her to maintain professional distance. One Friday evening, as they reviewed marketing materials in Blake's office, a thunderstorm rolled in. Rain lashed against the windows as thunder boomed overhead. That's quite a storm, Blake commented, moving to the window. You should probably wait it out before heading home. Amelia joined him at the window. The city lights blurred through the rain-streaked glass. I don't mind a little rain. It's more than a little, Blake said, turning to face her. They were standing too close for colleagues. Amelia, the office door opened and Blake's assistant poked her head in. Mr. Iverson, your 7 o'clock call to confirm. Blake stepped back from Amelia. Thank you, Janet. After the assistant left, an awkward silence fell between them. I should go, Amelia said, gathering her things. Have a good weekend. Amelia, wait. Blake caught her arm gently. I've been meaning to ask you to dinner, a real dinner, not a work meeting. Amelia looked up at him, her heart racing. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Because you're my boss, because this is complicated enough already. Blake released her arm. You're right, I apologize. No need to apologize. Amelia smiled tightly. I'll see you Monday. She fled the office, confused and conflicted. She was attracted to Blake more than attracted, but getting involved with him would complicate everything. Her stake in Horizon, her professional reputation, her heart. She couldn't afford any of those risks. The weekend passed slowly. Amelia tried to distract herself with work, but her thoughts kept returning to Blake. By Sunday evening, she'd made a decision. She would maintain professional boundaries, focus on increasing her stake in Horizon, and ignore her growing feelings for Blake Iverson. Monday morning, she arrived at the office early, determined to set things back on a purely professional track. But when she reached her office, she found a small package on her desk with a note in Blake's handwriting. Found this while researching Lambert algorithm applications. Thought you should have it. Inside the package was an old newspaper article about her father winning a coding competition in college. Amelia had never seen it before. Attached was a note from the college's archive granting permission to use the photo in marketing materials for the Lambert algorithm. The thoughtfulness of the gesture moved her deeply. She was still studying the article when Blake appeared in her doorway. "Good morning," he said cautiously. "I hope I didn't overstep with that." Amelia shook her head. "Not at all, thank you, I don't have many mementos of my dad from before I was born." Blake nodded. "About Friday night we should focus on the launch," Amelia interrupted. "It's only 6 weeks away." A flash of disappointment crossed Blake's face, but he nodded. "You're right, the marketing team needs our feedback on the presentation by tomorrow." They fell back into their professional routine, but something had shifted between them. Amelia caught Blake watching her during meetings. She found herself looking for excuses to stop by his office. The attraction between them was a current running just below the surface of every interaction. 3 weeks before the Lambert algorithm launch, Amelia stayed late to finalize technical documentation. Most of the office had emptied when Blake appeared at her door. "Still here?" he asked. "Just wrapping up," Amelia replied, saving her document. "How was your meeting with the investors?" "Productive. They're excited about the launch." Blake entered her office and sat across from her desk. "But that's not why I'm here." Amelia looked up, a question in her eyes. "I've been thinking about our situation," Blake said, "and I've come to a decision." "What situation?" "The fact that I'm in love with you and you're refusing to acknowledge what's happening between us because I'm technically your boss." Amelia's breath caught. "Blake, let me finish." He leaned forward. "I'm restructuring Horizon as a separate entity within Iverson Industries. You'll report directly to the board, not to me. There will be no conflict of interest. You're reorganizing your entire corporate structure because of me." "For us," Blake corrected. "If you want there to be an us." Amelia stood and walked to the window, needing space to think. "This is crazy. We barely know each other." "I know enough," Blake said, remaining seated. "I know you're brilliant, dedicated, and principled. I know you make me laugh and challenge my thinking. I know I've never felt this way about anyone before." Amelia turned to face him. "What if it doesn't work out?" "What happens to Horizon then? Your equity stake and position are contractually protected, regardless of our personal relationship." Blake's expression was serious. "I would never jeopardize your father's legacy or your professional standing." Amelia studied him, weighing his words. "I need time to think." "Take all the time you need." Blake stood. "The restructuring happens either way. It makes good business sense, even without the personal element." He left her office, and Amelia sank back into her chair, her mind whirling. Could she trust him? Could she trust herself? The next morning, a large envelope arrived on her desk. Inside were the details of the corporate restructuring, along with a handwritten note. "This is not pressure. This is a promise." Amelia reviewed the documents carefully. They were exactly as Blake had described, a clean separation of authority that removed any conflict of interest. She still wasn't sure what to do about her feelings for him, but she was touched by his thoughtfulness and integrity. The launch of the Lambert algorithm approached rapidly. 3 days before the event, Amelia was reviewing her presentation in an empty conference room when Blake found her. "How's it coming?" he asked. "Almost ready," Amelia replied, "just fine-tuning a few points." Blake sat beside her. "I have something to show you." He opened his laptop and pulled up a video. It was a recording of her father, younger than she remembered him, explaining his algorithm concept at what appeared to be an academic conference. "Where did you find this?" Amelia asked, tears filling her eyes. "University archives." "It took some digging." Blake watched her face. "I thought we could open the presentation with it." Amelia watched the video, drinking in the sight of her father alive, animated, brilliant. When it ended, she wiped her eyes. "It's perfect." "There's more," Blake said. "I've established the Lambert Innovation Fellowship. It will fund students pursuing work in adaptive learning technologies." Amelia stared at him. "You did what?" "Your father's work deserves to be carried forward by the next generation of innovators." Blake closed his laptop. "The first fellows will be announced at the launch." In that moment, everything crystallized for Amelia. Blake wasn't just saying the right things, he was doing them. Consistently putting her father's legacy and her interests ahead of his own convenience or profit. "Ask me again," she said softly. Blake looked confused. "Ask you what?" "Ask me to dinner. A real dinner. Understanding dawned in his eyes. "Amelia Lambert, would you have dinner with me, not as colleagues, as two people who might have a future together?" "Yes," she answered simply. They had their first official date the night after the Lambert algorithm launch, which was a resounding success. The video of her father brought tears to many eyes in the audience, and the announcement of the fellowship program generated significant positive press for both the algorithm and Iverson industries. Over dinner at a quiet restaurant overlooking the harbor, Amelia realized how natural it felt to be with Blake outside of work. They talked about their childhoods, their dreams, their failures, all the things they'd held back during their professional interactions. "I have a confession to make," Blake said as they shared dessert. "I knew who you were before the auction." Amelia set down her fork. "What do you mean?" "I researched Horizon thoroughly before deciding to bid. I knew about your father's connection to the algorithm and your attempts to acquire funding to buy the company." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to know why it was so important to you. I wanted to hear it from you." Blake reached across the table for her hand. "And then I met you and everything changed. I still wanted Horizon, but I also wanted to help you reclaim your father's legacy." "Is that why you offered me the position with such a generous equity stake?" Amelia asked. "Partly," Blake admitted. "But mainly because you're exactly what Horizon needs to thrive. Your expertise, your vision, your passion. My offer was a sound business decision." Amelia squeezed his hand. "Thank you for telling me." Their relationship progressed naturally from there. Blake was attentive but respectful of her independence. Amelia found herself falling deeper in love with him each day, not for his wealth or power, but for his integrity, intelligence, and the gentle way he cared for her. 6 months after the Lambert algorithm launch, Blake took Amelia to dinner at the small cafe where they'd had lunch after the auction. "Feeling nostalgic?" Amelia asked as they were seated at the same table they'd occupied that day. "Something like that," Blake replied with a smile. After they ordered, Blake reached across the table and took both her hands in his. "Do you remember what you said to me here the first time? That I wanted to reclaim my father's work," Amelia recalled. "And now you have. The Lambert algorithm is recognized worldwide. Your father's innovation is changing education and information processing across industries." Blake's eyes were warm. "You've accomplished what you set out to do." "With your help," Amelia acknowledged. "We make a good team." Blake paused. "Which brings me to why I brought you here tonight." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Amelia's heart began to race. "When I outbid you at that auction, I thought I was just acquiring a promising technology company. I had no idea I was setting in motion the events that would lead me to the love of my life." Blake opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald-cut diamond ring. "Amelia Lambert, will you marry me?" Tears filled Amelia's eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." Blake slipped the ring onto her finger and leaned across the table to kiss her, oblivious to the applause from nearby diners. 1 year later, they were married in a garden ceremony attended by family, friends, and colleagues. As a wedding gift, Blake surprised Amelia by transferring an additional 10% of Horizon to her, making her the majority stakeholder. "It was always meant to be yours," he told her as they danced at their reception. "I was just keeping it safe until you were ready." "I never expected this when I walked into that auction house," Amelia said, looking up at her husband. "I thought I was fighting to buy a company. Instead, I found the love of my life." "And I found mine," Blake replied, pulling her closer. "Who would have thought that the woman fighting so hard against me would end up being the one I couldn't live without?" 5 years after their wedding, Amelia and Blake sat in the garden of their home, watching their 3-year-old twins playing on the lawn. Horizon Technologies had thrived under Amelia's leadership, and the Lambert algorithm had revolutionized adaptive learning worldwide. The Lambert Innovation Fellowship had already produced several promising technologies. "I got a call from the patent office today," Blake said, handing Amelia a glass of lemonade. "They're officially recognizing your father as the original inventor of the core algorithm." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. After all these years, Justice sometimes takes time, but it comes eventually. Blake squeezed her hand. Your father would be so proud of what you've accomplished. What we've accomplished, Amelia corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Blake smiled. We're a good team, Mrs. Iverson. The best, she agreed, leaning against his shoulder as they watched their children play in the fading afternoon light, the legacy of Robert Lambert secure at last.